For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Today's Entrepreneur, a program about the entrepreneurial spirit that drives Quebec business. My name is Josh Miller from FL Fuller Landau, and the voice that you're missing tonight is our very own Dan Delmar. He claims he didn't have that great a weekend. It's not his fault for being sick. I guess the flu bug got him. So you are basically only working with myself tonight. There's that excellent repartee between the two of us, but we shall absolutely manage. On our program tonight, we have Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens, and we're going to come up to his story a little bit later on, maybe a touch sooner than usual. And in the last segment of our show, after 45, later on, we're going to have Kevin Ammerman, who's our IT specialist, and he's going to come to us with our twiddle notes, our This Week in Data Loss, as well as some challenges for entrepreneurs about shopping online from both the business aspect, and of course, we'll touch base on from the consumer front too, because it's the season, 'tis the season with shopping and Christmas, and I know with Modena Kitchens, and other businesses out there, there's lots of stuff selling online, so we'll kind of touch base with that as well. But first, let's get to some news of the week, and there's a number of stories out there. Let's start with there was in the Globe and Mail, we have this article, why a startup went to India to solve a problem, and it's not so much the problem that they were trying to solve, the diabetes issue, but it's more of the companies in Canada that are going offshore, the companies in Canada that are finding cheaper locations to do their business, to hire the people, to have everybody gets frustrated with the call centers, whether, from these large companies that you have, whether it's India or wherever it's coming from. However, there's definitely a cost advantage to it. I know in the accounting profession, in the legal profession, there's certainly areas where there can be cheaper labor to do well, I won't say grunt work, but it's a little bit of grunt work and kind of the repetitive work that goes on. And I find that businesses today, when they're really looking at cost cutting and advantage, that the labor market, and certainly in North America, where you have minimum wages that are relatively high, or at least by comparison, it's looking to other alternatives. And alternatives such as India and such as other Far East countries can absolutely prove to be the right answer for you. But it does require some investigations, and it does require some legwork, and it does require knowledge of that area and how to work there with the labor laws and whatever have you. So definitely a possibility. We see it happen every day. Is it for every business? No. But when you're looking at cost cutting, that's definitely something that can be looked at. On a different note, there's an article that is talking about the malls in Canada, and kind of a mall malaise. They have these malls that are really trying to get all their huge anchor tenants. As we've seen, as people have gone around, the Victoria's Secrets of the world, or the Walmarts of the world, or what have you. The H&Ms, all these large clothing that are spending a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of time trying to build this beautiful big store, and the malls are eating it up. They absolutely want to do it, but what is it taking? What is it taking away from the small store? That's it. I've heard of a number of companies, another number of retailers that just can no longer afford the rent that these big malls are forcing on the smaller tenants. So is it harder with the malls to be in business? Yes. However, if you're going to be in a mall, here's the trade-off. You might be paying more rent. Absolutely. As a matter of fact, you're likely paying more rent. But the question is, what are you getting in return? Are you getting the right foot traffic? If you feel that you want to exchange your marketing dollars, the money that you would spend on publicity and advertising, even online with Google AdWords or certain social media, if you can't do it in-house, well, then absolutely, if you want to exchange it for mall foot traffic, that's sometimes a decision that people like to take. So it's something that could be very interesting, but it's a decision, and you absolutely have to decide if it's for you or not, and where you spend the money and where you spend the dollars. All the malls have these fantastic stats of foot traffic and even parts of the mall. So it becomes a trade-off and how you measure your marketing efforts. As we go on, we have, another story that's come up, And everybody hears a lot about Dragon's Den, and everybody loves to watch it. It's always a great story. I guess what people don't always realize is the amount of deals that actually get made. It's kind of a fraction of that that actually close. And on TV we see a fraction of it. But even afterwards, there was a story in the Financial Post asking the question: is crowdfunding better than Dragon's Den, or better than a Dragon's Den deal? And it seems, at least in certain circumstances, that crowdfunding is actually easier to get funds. It's certainly less from a legal side, less from a negotiating standpoint. You don't have the I guess your 15 minutes of fame when you're on air, and that itself could be a very worthwhile exercise. But then the question is, how much information do you give investors where you have to disclose information and go through the legal process, versus crowdfunding, versus having a great idea, putting it online like a Kickstarter, making sure you have a great video and a great team around you, and of course a great product that can truly attract the consumers that don't mind spending the 20, 30, 40 or even $100 a person just to be kind of first in line. So it was very interesting aspect, or interesting spin on when the company's starting a business, really, and it needs funding, where does it go to? So I think crowdfunding, or a Kickstarter type, an Indiegogo, that kind of stuff, I think actually offers a great alternative. And before we get to Olivier and his story, kind of one other story that came up, and it's kind of, how do you sell a product that's still being developed? As we talk about the crowdfunding, as we talk about the Kickstarter stuff, it's really bringing a product to market. And how can you bring a product to market? How can you get the big boys to buy, or your customers to buy, if it's not proven yet? So in this article, it certainly talks about how you involve your customers and involve an advisory board of people that actually will make a difference and can help you develop your product on the way, because you'll get direct input from them, you'll get buy-in, you'll be able to get that much more testimonial, I guess, from direct customers if they get involved. And you find that a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs want to get in on the ground and want to get in at that level. And if they can influence a product that they'll ultimately use and that they support, I think it's absolutely great. We're at 7:13, and you might be tired of listening just to me and my monologue. So let's kind of bring in Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens, and welcome Olivier to the show.
Thank you.
And Modena Kitchens, has been around a number of years. It's in the kitchen, the building of kitchens. But let's just get an idea. Let the listener get an idea, Olivier, and kind of the easiest question of the night. Oh, they're all easy. But what is Modena Kitchens?
We actually import kitchen, bathroom, media units from Italy. So everything is built overseas. It's built in Italy, and then it's sent either by container or by air over here. Our clients are, anybody from a homeowner renovating a new kitchen, renovating his home, or, our other clientele is multi-unit developers. So someone who's building a condo tower.
Now it's both a direct to the consumer and group contractors, what have you.
Exactly.
Was that where you had started? How long ago did Modena start?
It's going on its 5th year, and my focus when I started out was really to go after the multi-unit market, because it's something that I felt was not saturated at the time, but I thought there was room for a new product, and something that developers were not used to seeing anymore. So that's how it started out.
But you learned, I know that it takes a lot of knowledge, it takes a lot of background to get into certainly the kitchen business that has, and certainly in the general contractor, in the construction, a lot of people in Montreal, they kind of hear construction a little bit and kind of a little wary, but then they talk about their kitchens, and of course everybody wakes up and says, yeah, I'd love to have a new kitchen. So when we come back after the break, it'll be interesting to hear a little bit more on the consumers, how you sell, how you kind of marketed when you first started out, and maybe a little bit today, 5 years in.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. My name is Josh Miller from FL Fuller Landau, and we are here with our guest this evening of Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens. Later on the program, we'll have Kevin Ammerman talking to us about, online shopping, and, 'tis the season coming up, so that'll be interesting. We'll stick around for that. But as we listen to Olivier and continue his story, you started your business about 5 years ago. And certainly, the people have to know that you're out there. Now you came from a background. What was the background you came from before you started this business?
I had two parents who were actually in the kitchen cabinet business for a number of years, manufacturing and then buying and selling, Canadian products. And I decided, like I said before, I want to get into the multi-unit side of things. So I had to make a move in order to get the right product to get into that market. So to get that right product, I had to get a product called Scavellini, which is from Italy, like I mentioned before, and that's how I got things going. But the first step was really getting the right product.
So even before you have any marketing plan whatsoever, I mean, you got to have, if you don't have the right product and you don't have that, whether that's the brand or the excellence or the delivery, then it's hard to do. So does that mean you got the product before you even decided what you would do from a marketing standpoint?
I did. And, that's really where it started from. After that, the planning came once I had the product. But I'm also fortunate enough that the product itself is pretty well known worldwide. And, they do a lot of advertising and a lot of marketing on their own, which I'm able to back onto.
So do you find, because you've tagged on to this unique or this one supplier, do you have any say in the marketing? Do they control it all? Do you, like, how involved do you get in their marketing, at least in our neighborhood in North America and Canada? Because do you sell only in Canada or you sell elsewhere?
I sell only in Quebec.
Only in
I have the
Quebec,
representation for Quebec.
So do you, because Quebec can be a distinct area, we'll say, is there any marketing that you do either other than Scavellini, or do you kind of give them a little bit of guidance here?
Actually, for certain advertising, on Canadian publications, they will do bilingual publications, because keeping in mind that Quebec is, like you said, distinct from the rest of Canada, marketing wise, definitely. And anything local, we take care of. But Scavellini itself definitely controls, publications such as Architectural Digest, Elle Decor, the prestigious stuff. They really have a hands-on approach, because they want to protect their branding also. It's definitely something that they keep an eye on.
No doubt. Listen, if they're marketing around the world, and absolutely they want to protect their brand and their name. But also interesting, in Quebec, you still have to do a little bit more. And when we come back from the break, we'll talk a little bit more on the marketing and a little bit more on what lessons that Olivier learned from his parents, and kind of what changes he did in his own business coming up.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
We are coming up to 7:26, and our guest this evening, our inspiring story tonight from outstanding business people, is Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens. And we were talking before, Olivier, about marketing. And there's marketing that your main supplier does worldwide, but certainly in Quebec, you still have to do some things a little bit different. You got to stand out. Kind of, what do you do that's different, and who do you like? Do you outsource? Do you have somebody internally? What do you do?
Well, actually, my background is in advertising and PR, so there's a lot of stuff that I do take care of myself. But I think that visually, a lot of our print ads, for instance, should be different depending on which crowd we're speaking to. Different magazines, different medias that we're using, the message changes, and I think that's really one important aspect that has to be taken into account when you're designing a campaign. So.
And there's no doubt there's a ton of competition out there. So when you're marketing and you're trying to look at a little bit different, how closely do you look at the competition? How closely do you monitor, and how much do you adjust as a result?
I mean, constantly, I think as a business owner, it's one of the most important things is to be aware of what's going on in your industry, whether I'm traveling anywhere. I think it becomes, even if it's a leisure trip, I think it always becomes a little bit of a business trip into looking at, what's being done elsewhere. I think that's really important to monitor.
Do you do trade shows?
Yeah, we do actually. We do the Sizema Plasmata Venture, and corporately, there's the IDS show in Toronto. There's the Milan Fair, which comes every 2 years.
Do you find that trade shows are useful, or are they a waste of dollars?
I mean, to a certain extent, it depends how much you invest yourself into each trade show. I think that represents, our biggest challenge is to finding that right dosage of time and money and also presence. But, ultimately, I think these trade shows are important. It shows that we are, leaders in the market. So
And of course, you get to see kind of who else is out there and what they're doing. And do you worry about people kind of stealing your ideas or copying you, or is that really not doesn't cross your mind at all?
I mean, I think any form of copying is flattery to a certain extent. We have design. Fortunate enough that we have Scavellini as a partner who comes out with new designs all the time, and also anything that comes out in Europe, trend-wise for cabinetry, is usually already a year or two ahead of whatever comes out here. So
So you always feel you're kind of ahead of the game.
sometimes a bit too much.
Does that mean you almost have to sometimes educate your customers as to kind of what's coming and what they should be on the lookout for?
Absolutely. I think when people walk into our showroom, they should feel like they're seeing something different and a little bit trend setting. So definitely we do educate them when they come through.
Are there a lot of, I mean, I don't know how much technology plays a role over the years and how much, whether it's, or the type of materials that come out. What's the trend today? What do you see happening, or what's, as you said, and if Europe is a year or two ahead, kind of what do you see out there?
We see a lot of matte finishes coming in. Where high gloss for a few years was very in. We're seeing porcelain front doors, glass front doors, antibacterial materials coming out, which is stuff that you don't see in Quebec yet. Eventually, it'll follow, but this is stuff that's already mainstream in Europe, and we like to be at the forefront of it.
And you definitely have to keep an eye on things, no doubt, especially if there's lots of competition out there. It's really staying ahead of the curve on many aspects. And when we come back from the break, because I know you learned from a couple of veterans over the years, but then you kind of you did it on your own. You took your own spin on things. I think that'll be an interesting part of the story coming up. We're talking with Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens, and later on we'll bring Kevin Ammerman into the fold and talk about shopping online and what you should know.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. The voice you're not hearing this evening is our wonderful co-host Dan Delmar, who had a really fun weekend, I gather, because he's down feeling a little under the weather. So we certainly wish him well and a speedy recovery. And we are here tonight with Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens. And I know we keep talking, Olivier, about this Scavellini line, this main supplier. This is your product. As you started out and you're looking for this line, how in the world did you find them, and how did you know that they were the right one for you?
I actually knew about it from a few years before that. I think most people in the kitchen business have heard of it at some point. And somebody in Montreal had it for a number of years. And I was flipping through magazines one day, and I saw that this gentleman didn't have the line anymore. And coincidentally, I was going to New York the next day, and Scavellini's North American head office is in New York. So I made a phone call, quick email, and next thing you know, I had an appointment the next day in New York. And I was already going, so it was a great coincidence. So we met, we discussed, went back and forth for a few months, and I eventually got the line for Quebec.
Was it easy to deal with? I mean, you're dealing with, overseas suppliers. They're dealing with Quebec entrepreneur. The few months, did it take longer or shorter than you thought?
Probably a little longer than I thought. I think they don't want to give the line to anybody. But the one thing that did surprise me is their openness because of my age. to actually hand that line over to me. I think that was the biggest surprise in those dealings.
Listen, I presume they saw the passion, the conviction, and the reality is you weren't a new kid on the block. You might be from a company standpoint, but not from an experience standpoint. Which kind of leads me to my next question. You gained all this experience from your parents. They're veterans in the industry. You go out on your own. There must be different styles from them versus you. What was kind of the biggest change or how you treated your business afterwards?
I think the biggest change was adapting to new technologies, how people shop, from setting up a website that reflects, the quality of the product that we're selling. Uh, the magazine ads, everything else was a different approach.
So
Even
kind of
buying
coming
some.
into the 21st century, if you will.
Exactly. I think I was at that point also where I needed to go out on my own maybe and do things differently.
A little bit different style, whether you're dealing with different people, the suppliers, the customers, kind of put your own twist on it.
Exactly.
Excellent. So now that you kind of have your own twist on it, and we'll come back to, actually, you brought up technology. So let's ask right here. Today's, we went through, myself, my wife, went through this whole kitchen renovation, and this was already several years ago, but the amount of software that was available online so that people can truly get an image of what it's going to look like, this technology must absolutely help you and your business and help sell.
Yeah, absolutely. We're fortunate enough that Scavallini has its own software to get 3D realistic renderings, which are based on the actual product lines that we have, because we have 650 different finishes. So even for us, sometimes it becomes a bit of a challenge to be able to portray those different finishes properly. So the software definitely helps us. We can do a 3D walkthrough. We present on a big screen TV. All those tools definitely help us on a day-to-day basis.
So is that now it's again part of the education of the customer so that they have to kind of learn what to look for and how things can be set up?
Yeah, definitely. But what's nice about that whole process is that they really feel like they know what they're getting as far as accessories and as far as materials. So
Now, we've been talking about the business, and there's no business that operates alone. You certainly, I'm sure you have a team around you. How many people are you at Modena?
we're six in the office, mostly design. And then, of course, there's all the installation crews, site surveyors, that type of stuff that really are our face on the field. So, that's definitely something that's important that they represent us properly.
As you're starting your own business and as you're certainly growing and building, is it easy to find the team around you, the installers? What do you look for? What are the criteria you look for when you're hiring?
It's extremely difficult, and I think the most important thing is finding people who share my passion for delivering, a nice product in a timely manner, in a cost efficient way. But more than that, it's someone who goes home at night and yes, can relax, but their mind is still thinking about how they can make things better, and they bring solutions to the table and bring in new ways of seeing things. That's really important to me.
And have you ever had to kind of part ways with somebody in your team, an installer or whatever, because you realize that they didn't share or they didn't continue to share that passion, that desire, that drive, that understanding?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it happens, but we always hope that everybody that we have on board is sharing the same vision that we do have.
Do you meet with your team often? I mean, you always work side by side, but is there a formality or it's more informal when you're working together?
No, it's more informal. We have a lot of work to do, so everybody kind of goes their own way, but we always make time that if we need to set something straight and work in finding ways to do things better, to take the time and do that.
And as you're starting your new business, and of course you have your parents that you look up to and that you learned a lot from. Do you bounce ideas off of your team? Do you have kind of a mentor that you worked with over the years when you were starting, or did you really kind of look to your experience with your parents for that?
Well, we always bounce ideas with our team. I think that's something really important. They see things that I don't see, so I think that's something that's really important. I also have a good family friend who's actually my insurance broker who mentored me and really gave me a hand the past few years. Again, it was a new market for me. It's a little bit intimidating maybe at first to see, the sheer number of kitchens that have to be installed and delivered on certain projects. But I think that he's really given me a hand, and I'm fortunate enough that I have really good people around me that have really helped me out.
And you certainly, logistics play a huge role because the timing of the delivery and the installation is absolutely monstrous. So I'm sure there was a lot of that you learned. Just quickly before we hit 45, from a logistics standpoint, did you learn a lot over the last few years?
I learn every day. It's still, it's an intricate part of our business, the logistics. We need to be on top of that all the time.
No doubt. We're talking with Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens, who'll stay with us as we complete the show. And as we come back, we have Kevin Ammerman on the way with certainly our twiddle notes for the week, as well as online shopping and kind of from a business standpoint and a consumer standpoint. So stay tuned for that.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to today's Entrepreneur, inspiring stories from outstanding business people. My name is Josh Miller from FL Fuller Landau. We are here with Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens, and we bring into the conversation Kevin Ammerman, IT specialist at FL Fuller Landau. And Kevin, I love this report. I know consumers hate it because it means that their data has been lost or stolen or it's out there somewhere. But I love our twiddle report. This week in data loss. What do you have for us this week?
Well, without fail, a couple of more companies have run into problems in the last week or so. One of the big ones is the Starwood Hotels chain. There were some other hotels in the news a few months ago because they had lost their loyalty card program had been compromised and they lost a lot of information. This time it's a little more mundane. It's more just credit card information. A whole bunch of point of sale terminals were hacked into at these hotel chains, and they lost a lot of consumer information. I don't think they're even quite sure how much information was lost yet, but it was quite a lot. So if you've been traveling, it might be a good time to check those bank accounts, see what's going on.
And there's really nothing consumers can do to protect against the data loss. All they can do is monitor, as you say, their own accounts, their own credit cards, and make sure there's no fraud.
Yeah, and this is where it's a little bit disappointing because it seems to be sort of standard now for a company that's gone through this kind of issue to try to provide some sort of credit monitoring to the people that might be affected. But that's really sort of a token gesture. That's not, these people, a lot of cases have to rebuild their entire lives, like get new social insurance numbers, new credit cards, new fresh identification. And it's really hard to recover from something like that. So a little bit of monitoring really doesn't help.
So I know we're not even in December yet, but it seems like online shopping and the shopping season is always around when we're talking online. Exactly. But there's definitely challenges from the consumer end, of course, and as well from the business end and those that are selling. So maybe you can share with us a couple of challenges that come right off the top of your head.
Well, some of the businesses are really coming through these days. I think they did manage to launch some new security features in sort of anticipation of the big online shopping days that are coming up, or if not already hit. Amazon is one of the biggies that just rolled out a new feature. It's called two-factor authentication. So this adds a lot of security to your online purchases because when you log into a web browser for the first time, it, instead of just asking for a username and password, it sends an authentication code to your cell phone. So if you don't enter that authentication code, then it doesn't let you log on and you can't make any purchases. So it makes sure that you have two things. You got to have that password, plus you have to have the right cell phone handy in order to actually get on the site. So this is a big deal. We're seeing more and more sites rolling out this kind of feature, and it's really, really useful. So if you're subscribing to services that offer this, it's really a good idea to take advantage of it and to try to protect yourself that way.
And you see it often. I mean, even, protecting your Gmail account or whatever, they always kind of ask for your mobile phone number because if they do need to verify security or somebody else is logged in, they can use that as another feature.
Exactly. So Gmail's been on this for some time. PayPal has had the feature in place for a little while, and it's really good to see other online services coming on board with this. And I hope to see it across more smaller stores as well.
And I think it's interesting, and certainly from a business standpoint, people also, the entrepreneurs have to look out for it. So when we come back from the break, we'll kind of look at it from the other angle as well.
For professional advice with a personal touch, consult Fuller Landau, Chartered Professional Accountants and Business Advisors. Click on flmontreal.com.
Welcome back to Today's Entrepreneur. This is Josh Miller from FL Fuller Landau, and we're in conversation with Olivier Proulx of Modena Kitchens, and we'll hear his one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur in just a couple of minutes. But we'll continue quickly our conversation with Kevin Ammerman, IT specialist. And Kevin, at the top of the hour, we kind of chatted a little bit about Kickstarter and that, and the crowdfunding and that being an interesting avenue instead of finding outside investors, but from an online management aspect and kind of, the marketing, get things out there, maybe, what entrepreneurs can kind of think about is the leverage of this.
Well, it is a totally new vector for sales. It's a new approach. And it really comes down to a new storefront for people. So consumers are pretty familiar with eBay and Etsy and these online marketplaces. So in addition to being sort of a new vector for people to raise money, it's a new place for people to buy stuff for presents for this upcoming holiday season. And small businesses can sort of take advantage of this. If they can find a way to spin this where they can sort of distribute that production cost in a way that's appealing to, a whole new set of people that are a little bit more adventurous or want to get their hands on these new gadgets sooner, this can be a really big opportunity for businesses.
Now, once they kind of get beyond that and they have kind of their online presence and they're selling, the management of the back end is I'm sure, really, I mean, of course it's important, but sometimes difficult. I mean, you got to have, you're managing your online inventory and all that. There's a lot of challenges that I would think come with that. For
the Kickstarters, it's a little bit, they sort of provide the back end for that. They provide the management to actually receive payments and all of this, but you've got to manage the supply chain that sort of feeds this. And this is where things get kind of interesting. So especially if your Kickstarter takes off and sort of goes out of control and you'll raise a lot more money than you expected, you got to be prepared to scale with this, right? So you've got to have the logistics in place for shipping, for manufacturing all this stuff, and for, getting everything to the right place at the right time. So trying to make sure that information infrastructure is in place. It's a lot more than just signing up for a Kickstarter with a brilliant idea. You got to have some backing behind it, and you got to have a plan in place to make things go.
And what a lot of entrepreneurs don't realize, or maybe they do sometimes, is the front end that's just the face. There's so much that's happening behind the scenes. Thank you, Kevin, for bringing that. I know it's a topic we can probably spend a whole show on, but we'll kind of stop there as we turn to Olivier Proulx, Modena Kitchens, and in his numerous years of being in this business, in this sector. We'll turn to Olivier and ask you, Olivier, what would be your one piece of advice for today's entrepreneur?
Probably not to take anything for granted as far as, if things are going well, I think you always have to still be ahead of the game and always be on the lookout for new trends and new products, because that's when it gets complicated if you're not on top of things.
Thank you, Olivier. And my takeaway from the show is kind of when your story about how you found your supplier Scavellini, and it was opportunistic. You kept your eyes open. You were looking for something new. You were starting out, and you really just kind of scoured, a little bit of luck because they were kind of in the neighborhood, but it's also you keeping your eye out for something. And I think things don't always fall in your lap. There is an element of luck, but not always the case. So for me, that's kind of what stood out a little bit in the show earlier. So thank you very much, Olivier, for joining us. Kevin Ammerman, thank you very much. We are we are not here next week, as traveling to my annual trip to Hong Kong. So we'll hear about that when I come back. We'll be back on December 7th and December 14th with a couple of shows. Thank you for staying tuned to Today's Entrepreneur. You can reach FL Fuller Landau during business hours at 514-875-2865 or flmontreal.com. It's now 8 o'clock. Thank you very much. The exchange is next.